Welcome to another episode on the challenges and triumph of online teaching during COVID-19 at the Female Educators Roundtable with your host, Debby Enoe, and another female educator from around the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us what country you come from, what age group you teach, and country, age group, and how long you've been teaching for.
Sure. So I'm Carrie.
Thank you.
I am from Ontario, Canada. I teach 9 and 10. I teach all ages, but this last year I've taught ages 9 and 10-year-olds, which is grade 4 here. And I've been teaching, this will be going on my 19th year of teaching.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for that. And welcome onto the platform to share your experience of online teaching and discuss some of the issues that's been going on out there with educators where people are saying that we are lazy, we don't want to go back to work, we want to stay home because we're getting paid, and the complaints go on and on and on and on. But what people are failing to realize is as educators, our jobs are so much different from the secretary or the administrator or the CEO, because some of us are dealing with 4-year-old who've got runny nose. And if we are talking about how COVID is passed on, which none of us really know, and we're also being told that we have to be physically distancing these children, then a number of issues need to be considered before we actually seriously think about going into the classroom. Yeah. We do want to go into the classroom because being at home all the time, that's not what we sign up for. We sign up for the physical classroom because all of us know what it is like to be teaching in front of our students and being right there with them hands-on. So it is unfair for people to be labeling us lazy and that we don't want to go back to work. Yeah. You know, I certainly want to go back to work because there's so many things we need to teach our students. But it's sad that people are not seeing the reality of what teaching is all about. So would you explain to us what it was like teaching online with your students and how many students you had and what it was like in terms of engagement, attention, assessment, things like that?
Okay, so I'll start with how we ended up online.
Yes,
so
please.
we were to start our spring break on March 13th was the last day of classes. And March 12th, we found out that we weren't going to be going back until at least April 4th. So we had one day to figure out how things were going to kind of look for 2 weeks after the March break, or our spring break. During the spring break, we were not given any information as to what was going to happen. We had no idea what the expectations were on us. And then probably a couple days before the March break ended, the minister of the province for education said, for the next 2.5 weeks, we have this platform for parents to get onto. But we still didn't know what our job was going to be. So then we found out that we were going online, and it was going to last probably until the middle of April, because we only knew about 2 or 3, maybe a month ahead of time what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So for pretty much the last 3 months of the school year, it was, are we going back or are we not going back? So we always had to figure out when in our teaching how, if we were to go back, we don't want to do this, but if we're not going back, we have to do this. One of the biggest pushes was trying to figure out, first I had to get all the parents and emails. I had 25 students, and we had to send emails all to the parents and ask them if they had access to technology and if they had access to internet and how good their internet connection was. I taught in a rural school district, so internet connectivity is very sketchy for a lot of people, and it can be very, very expensive out where we are. It costs a lot of money. So we had to figure out how many of our students could actually get online, and then we had to figure out how to set up a space for them. So our school board does Google Suites, and so my students, being in grade 4, they knew how to get into their Google account at least they knew their passwords, and They knew how to get onto the documents and things like that. So luckily, 5 or 6 years ago, I had a little bit of training on Google Classroom. Okay. And so I was able to get my Google Classroom set up in the 2 weeks that it took. And the first day we went live with it, you know, there was lots of questions on how to do it. And, you know, I made phone calls to parents, helping them get set up. And, you know, it was a learning curve. I tried to do a lot of, you know, here's the picture of this is what you need to click, that kind of thing. And then it was trying to figure out, okay, do my students need to do 1 week at a time, or do we need to do, you know, 1 day at a time? Our government here said the focus should just be on language and math. Okay. And if you could get, you know, include some of the other subjects in those two, all the better. Kids from kindergarten to grade 6, so about 11 years old, 3 to 11, they were only to work 1 hour a day. That was all the work we were supposed to provide for them, is 1 hour a day. Grade 7 and 8, I believe, was 2. And then the high schools, I believe, were up to, I think, 3 hours.
Okay, that's very good.
I could be wrong. I know that it was so many hours per course for the high schools. They had to be. The government told all of the province that anything that was done online would not count. So it could increase the students' mark if they did well, but it could not decrease it.
Okay.
So about, I guess, April 4th is where we started going in with the parents. That's when we started giving kids work to do. And the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there was quite a bit of engagement. I got about 3/4 of my class was engaged in the activities. You know, every single night was giving them feedback on what they've done.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of engagement there. And then it kind of just stopped after probably right around the end of April, right after the Easter weekend and stuff. It kind of just stopped. And then from then on, I consistently had about 12 or 13 or so, about half my class. And then by middle of May, I was down to 8 on a regular basis that were engaged. So the way my class was set up was I was on Google Classroom. I would have their work. We decided daily was better than weekly. They liked having it every day rather than every week.
Okay.
So what I ended up doing in Google is I would just like do all my lessons for the week and then just schedule them to show up on the days that they needed them.
Okay. Yes.
And so then once a week, probably starting right at the beginning of May, end of April, once a week, I did 2 video chats with the students. So I would do one at the morning and I'd do one in the afternoon, and it had nothing to do with school.
Oh, wow, that's brilliant.
The parents agreed with me, and I thought it was best that it was just the kids wanted to see each other and they wanted to talk to me. So we just spent an hour, sometimes half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, and whoever showed up. The most I ever had was 8, and I at least I ever had was 1. So, you know, I got to see their pets, and I'd ask them to show me their drawings. We talk about any books they read or any movies they saw. And it was just a chance for them to talk. I learned how to do talking lessons on Google so that I could explain the lessons. So on some of the lessons they had that. And then I actually learned how to create what are, I guess they call Google Bites, where you could kind of have a Bitmoji of yourself. And
what is it?
A Bitmoji, it's just like an avatar of yourself.
Okay.
And it would be like I create an avatar for myself in a math classroom, and they could click on different links to do the different math, or they could click on different links to do math games. And so I learned how to do that. So that was kind of cool, actually. So I learned how to do some tech stuff that I didn't know how to do before. My school board was pretty good. Like if we needed help with some of the tech, then about a month in, they were able to start getting people set up with that. They had people at the school board that would they did a big group lesson, or you could have them sign up for a time to do a short lesson with them. But I didn't use it, but I was pretty good tech savvy wise to do it. We learned about a month in which kids needed to do paperwork. So you would have to plan 2 weeks worth of work for them.
Okay.
And what you would do is you'd send it into the school office, and then the secretary would print it off, and then the couriers would send them out to the kids. And then 2 weeks later, they would come back. They'd have to sit in the office for 3 days, and then we would have to go to our school to pick them up. So for me, going to my school meant a 40-minute drive there and a 40-minute drive back to go pick up the stuff. So, and we did that, I think, 4 times.
Okay.
So it meant that you had to be planned with all of the activities at least 2 weeks ahead of time. So for me, it was probably the most I've ever worked in my life. Yeah. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we are home all the time. So you're online all the time.
Yes.
So I found that I was basically available 12 to 13 hours a day, you know. And then and even on the week, I didn't stop. Like I had 2 days. I took 2 days from March until, well, April 4th, I guess, until June 29th. I took 2 days where I didn't do anything. I didn't go online. I didn't answer emails. I just took 2 days, but that was it. So I was basically working 7 days a week.
Wow.
For a lot of hours a day. And like, even when you were done, like your students were done for the day, you still were planning what you're going to be doing. And then you were giving them all feedback, right? So you're giving them, okay, you did really well on this. You might want to work on this. So, I mean, the bonus was you weren't doing actual assessments. So you weren't like, it was more of like, you did really well with this, work on your multiplying next time kind of thing. But again, the students only had to be on for an hour a day, and it could be any hour, and it could be any hour.
What?
Yeah.
So which means that's the reason why you were online all the time, because they're choosing when they want to come online.
Well, I didn't have to, like I said, I didn't have to be in front of them when they were online, right? They could choose. I didn't have to be in front of kids. I didn't have to be, right? But it meant that if they didn't do their work until like 6 or 7 o'clock that night, I might not get to it until 10 or 11, right? So it's because the parents, it was when they had time for their tech, when they could help their kid, right? It wasn't their fault. It was just, you did what, and I told the parents this, and I told the kids this. I said, your mental health is more important than anything else that you're doing right now. I said, if you can't manage to do it right now, don't do it. I'd much rather you be happy and not stressed out about this. And this, I said, it's not counting towards anything. So it wasn't counting towards their grades. It wasn't going to be counting towards any report cards. It was just, yeah.
It was, so therefore, why did you work so hard?
Because I care about my kids and I care about the parents. Like I had a really good relationship with the community that I was in, with the parents that I was with, and the kids. And I wanted to make sure that no one could come back later and say you didn't do your job, right? So I just, I wanted to make sure I was prepared all the time, and that there was always something for them to do, and that there was never. But no, they did not have to do it. They didn't have to do it. Exactly.
So therefore, the fact that initially you had quite a good attendance, and then the attendance and the engagement start tapering off because the students realized they didn't have to do it.
Yep.
There was no point. So therefore, why would I be logging on if I don't have to do the work?
Well, and especially if their parents weren't forcing them to, right? The ones that stick around were the ones that the parents were able to to get the kids to keep doing it. They didn't have their own worries. Well, they did, don't get me wrong. They put the schooling as the kids, and some of the kids really enjoyed the activities I gave them to do. So it was, for the most part, some of them really just liked going on and seeing what was there for that day. And some of them looked at it and then didn't do it, which is fine, right? I said, it was what they could do. And I mean, as a parent myself, there were so many other worries we had, right? Like some of these parents were worried about how they were going to feed their child, or how they were going to keep, how they were going to make the next rent or the next bill, right? So their concern was not school, and that's okay. And that's really okay. And the kids I didn't hear from for a long time, I just sent an email to their parents. I'm like, is everything okay? Can I help you? Is there anything I can do to make things easier for you? What can I do to help? And sometimes they're like, I'm sorry, we're good. We're going to get back on. And some of them are like, we just can't do it right now. And I'm like, okay. I had other teacher friends where the parents were like, we have used up our allowance of data for the month and we can't be back on for the next 3 weeks. Right? So I understood why it didn't count. I don't think it would have been fair if it had.
Yeah. Because you see, there were other underlying factors which was far more important than actually logging on to see what work you have to be doing.
Yep.
That was a big, that was far bigger issue. And on the other hand, the fact that the children were told that, oh, well, this is not counting for anything. You don't really have to log on, They saw it as an extended holiday, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, some of them from March until June didn't do anything. And honestly, all I could hope is that they kept reading and occasionally would do some math, right? Like it was there for them if they wanted it. And even if they didn't hand it in, even if they looked at it, I was pretty happy if they even just looked at it and saw what we were kind of doing. Some of our students with more exceptionalities had a harder time and needed a lot more assistance. And it's hard not being there to do that. It's really hard there where you can't be there to help. And, I made sure for me that if anytime a parent had a question, even if it was on the weekend, if it was in the nighttime, if they had a question, I was there to answer it the best I could.
You were just, you were just constantly there.
I was. Yeah, it was exhausting.
It would be.
It was exhausting. Yeah, because
So what time would you normally start your class?
Well, we had to be on for 9 a.m. Okay. And so my assignments all went on. Like I said, I let Google do that. I said, okay, Google, I want it set for this time. And so at 8 a.m. my work course would go up. But like I said, I had to be online. I had to be there for the kids if they had a question. But I didn't necessarily have to teach them online. Like I didn't actually have to be live. Near the end of the end of May, our minister said he wanted all teachers to do an hour of live teaching every day. And we said no. Like some boards were like, yes, you must do this. But most of the school boards were like, no, it's not going to happen. Because one, the high school students, they weren't waking up till noon, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the sleeping pattern, up all night, sleep all day.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the fact is you had parents that, needed to work all day and the kids couldn't have the computers until, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So why would we be teaching live to these kids when not everyone could get that
access? Yeah.
And so, like I said, with us, where I was, and there's a lot of communities that people here don't realize. Like I live in a city that has 150,000 people. Okay, I taught literally 30 kilometers from there, and there was major internet access problems, right? There, even on my drive home, I would not have a cell signal for half of my drive home.
Wow.
So, I mean, trying to teach live when these kids can't even get YouTube videos or anything else like that, it was not reasonable.
Yeah.
So and some teachers did it. Some teachers did it really, really well. Some teachers were on every day for however long they could be. Like they would do a math lesson and then they record it and the kids would watch it when they could. And some would join live. That wasn't something I was comfortable with.
Okay.
That wasn't something that I felt would be good for my students. But I did ask. Like I did ask the parents. I sent surveys out every couple weeks just to see how things were and how they wanted to change it. And I tried to make them, be part of the whole situation because they're the ones who have to deal with their kids.
Exactly. That's very good though, because the fact that you find out from them, okay, how do you want to change things? Are we going to stay as it is, or you want, there's some other way you want? That's brilliant. You want it to be. That's fantastic.
Like I said, I'm lucky because I knew the kids. I'd been in that community for 9 years. I had taught brothers, I had taught sisters, I had taught cousins of the kids I had, so like I knew a lot of the families, or they knew of me, right? Yes, they'd heard of me because it's small towns talk.
Right, exactly. So which means that in terms of cohesion and in terms of community, engagement, you've got that because, it's a small area and everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, I think from all the feedback that I received from other colleagues and from the principal and vice principal, the parents were very happy with what we were doing.
Okay. That's good.
But we had teachers that didn't have internet access and they were told by the school boards to go sit in front of the school to get internet access from the school. It wasn't online learning. It was called emergency distance learning. And that's what it was.
Yes. It was because it was an emergency and therefore, it was on the internet. So therefore online. So therefore we just had to go for it. That's interesting actually. It's because some of them worked well and some of them was just a shamble, depending on what's happening with the internet.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to is that whether or not, you had to, work with what you could. And honestly, like I said, from the very get-go with my students and my parents, I'm like, do what you need to do to get through. I said, school will be here. I said, we'll do our jobs next year. We'll get them caught up. We'll do what we have to do, but you need to do what you need to do in your family to get by.
Yes. Yep.
Because I think so many times the parents were kind of dismissed, but they're under so much stress themselves, right? And the kids will feel that too. The kids are going to feel that stress.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about the weather before, it was kind of miserable. You couldn't really go outside a whole lot for the first little bit.
I know. That's the thing about it. As well as missing school, you look outside, it was so gloom. There's nothing you could do than just stay in the house and, sleep all day and wake up all night,
Yeah. And I mean, I was very lucky that I worked for a school board that, let us continue to do what we were doing well.
Okay.
I worked for a school board that said, you guys are doing a great job. We really appreciate everything you're doing. And I worked for good administrators that said the same thing. You guys are doing a great job. All we're hearing from the parents is good comments. Just keep up what you're doing. And that makes a huge difference as an educator, just to be told, things, you're doing a good job, right? I don't need a whole lot. I just, tell me we're doing a good job and that's enough.
Yeah. Especially around this, unexpected period where we have not been trained to do that. We actually had to do crash courses ourselves because when we became trained as educators, there was nothing on our scheme of work. There was nothing called online platform. It was in the physical classroom, and this is what you do with your students, things like that. So now that we had to come emergency on the online, we had to do crash courses.
It was hard.
Yeah. But you see, what puzzles me is, your students were not always online. They came online when they want to. So why were you constantly online? I understand you say you need to be there for your student, but they're not there. They made a decision.
Our school board said from 9 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. we had to be available at all times for whatever. I would take, don't get me wrong, I would take breaks to make dinner. I wasn't supposed to be out in public if I needed to go grocery shopping or anything. I wasn't supposed to be out in public during school time, so I had to do it after school. You know, there are some days 3:30 rolled around and I could not wait to get out of the house. But I think I did it more to myself because I wanted to be planned. I wanted to make sure that I needed to know that the activities were there, they're ready to go. And like I said, for some of my students, I had to be 2 weeks ahead of time. So I had to make sure that was ready. And then I would try to give feedback.
Okay.
So, I mean, I wasn't necessarily on the computer the whole time. I was for the time that I was supposed to be.
Okay.
My computer set up. Sorry.
That's the challenge of online platform.
Yes. Yes, that's definitely one of the big ones. Your dog's barking in the middle of a conference call.
Yep.
So, I mean, I did a lot of it to myself, but I know I was not the only one that was doing long days and long nights. And it's just a matter of, I just wanted to be ready and prepared, and, you know, it was always in front of you. Right? Your computer's always sitting there. So even if it's closed, you're like, oh, I better go online to see what was done.
Yeah, isn't it?
And it's on my phone too. So that's where I got all my messages, was on my phone. So.
I don't have it on my phone. It's on the computer. Because as educators, you need to separate home and school, even though we are all at home. You need to have clear demarcation mark in terms of this is home and this is school. Because you see, my next question to you is, how did you do self-care? What did you do for self-care? Because it sounded to me that it was not on your agenda at all. It seems to be school care. So where was self-care in all of that?
I didn't have it. I did not have a good balance.
Exactly. So therefore, that's no good, because a situation where you are giving your all and you're pouring from an empty jug. There isn't anything else that is filled up in that jug for you could pour out to your students, because you've already given them everything already. There's nothing left. Yeah,
it was, I did not have, between my kids and the work, I did not have a lot of anything for much else. So
sorry?
I didn't, and I knew I wasn't doing a good job of it. And I couldn't feel like I could get behind.
Yes, but you see, you had an added advantage knowing that this wasn't counting for anything.
I know.
It sounds like it was an obsession as a teacher. Here we go again, really, we feel that our students have to be there, we need to be there for us, even though there isn't any assessment.
I know. I look back on it and I'm like, what was I thinking? But at the time, that's what I felt like I had to do.
Yeah.
So it's just, I can't go back and fix it. I'm glad I'm not going to be doing it anymore.
So when you guys go back in September, but what is it you guys going back to, the physical classroom?
So right now, most of us are going back to the classroom. I believe that there are going to be some exceptions for teachers that are worried about their health, like really, like they have immunization issues. And I think what the plan is to maybe make those teachers the online teachers.
Okay.
There's been a very big push for classroom teachers saying we can't do both. We cannot be online and do classroom. We can't do both.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to be expected to. But other than that, I don't know what's going to go on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a teacher that came on. I think she was on either sometime last week. And what was expected of them was they had to do the online classroom and the physical classroom
Yeah, in the
together.
States,
So
it's crazy.
it doesn't make sense.
No.
No one know how that was going to go. I said, okay, are you going to teach while you're streaming? But that's not even working either. So in terms of that, that's madness.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that.
In terms of your community, you started off with 20 something, and then you end up with 15, and then you end up with 8.
Yep.
Right? So how did you maintain a classroom community with a group of students you had? Because you ended up with 8, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, they got together, like I said, the once a week video chats. If they wanted to join,
yes.
That's what they did.
Yes.
And they could see their friends. But other than that, some of them saw their friends outside of the class.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So there were no physical distancing for them.
They had a small. Some of them would have like their own little pod, I guess, of people. Like that was.
Okay. So the fact that your borough was saying that the assessment, or there was no assessment done, whatever work that they didn't count for anything. So what was the reasoning for allowing you guys to do this online platform?
I don't have a good answer for you, except that it was expected. That I think it was more of a perception of the public that we're being paid to do this, so we need to be doing this.
Because you see, what's in my head, the fact that you're saying to, you're not only saying it to the teachers, you're saying to the public at large, so that the students get to hear that, well, it's not counting towards your assessment.
Yeah.
So who is going to want to come online?
Well, you know what? Like I said, some of them in high school especially, they could improve their marks. They just couldn't go down.
Okay. So how was your teacher, student, parent relationship?
I think for majority it was really good.
Okay.
I think it went really well for the ones that stayed engaged the whole time. I think I had a really good relationship with the parents and the students as well. So it was very difficult when I was telling them I was leaving and I wouldn't be back in September. So that was hard.
Okay. Because you don't see the same student in September, do you?
No.
Okay. So that was your goodbye, etc. So the fact that they were told that this is not assessed work. So what happened to them actually moving forward? The fact that the work wasn't assessed?
We don't know.
Okay. So you guys were not even told that?
So we had to do report cards based on 15 days of work.
So what did you write on the report card? How could you do a report card for 15 days? It doesn't make sense in my head.
Didn't make sense in ours either, but we did it.
Okay, so when you have to write on the report card, when you say, okay, what areas of improvement, what did you do?
What did you do before the break? So like there was a lot of, in math, we only covered one strand before the break. So the other 4 strands, we didn't write anything because there was nothing we could write.
Okay.
Right. And so for like oral communication was one of the strands for language. We just couldn't give them a mark. Some of them, we just couldn't give them a mark for anything because we didn't have anything.
Exactly.
So you just put, due to the shutdown, I have no mark for this right now.
Okay. Well, you see, in my head, that could have done for the whole group instead of having to do that for students that you have no mark for, because this is going nowhere.
It does not going to mean a lot, that's for sure.
Exactly. It's not going anywhere.
And for us and for public elementary teachers, we did not, we weren't to put our report cards into the system. And so the principals got our marks for the first term, and parents could call and ask for them, but they never got sent out. So most of the parents had no, I mean, if you're a good teacher, you're going to be telling the parents where the kid's at throughout the year, right? You shouldn't be waiting until report cards anyway. But there's a lot of parents who are like, I haven't seen anything since November, right?
Whoa.
Right? So like they don't, and like I said, the report card is based on 15 days.
Exactly. What could you say about this challenge, 15 days of attendance?
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. There's nothing.
Well,
sorry?
Especially when you have students that go on vacation for 10 of those days. So.
Exactly. So why are you writing? I just find that, I understand the parents feeling that, okay, I need to keep up education, even though it is not education.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want the public to start condemning us for not doing anything. And I think that seems to be the reason for that, because they didn't want the limelight or the focus to be on the fact that they didn't do anything. Yeah. But parents and children who caught on, there's no point in me doing anything when it's not going to be right.
I know. It is what it is, right? I know that the online learning starting in September is going to be a lot different. We just don't know how different.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot more organized. I think it's going to be a lot, and from what I understand, they are going to be taking attendance. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be assessed. It's going to be a lot different than the previous months.
Yes. So you guys are going on, but you're not going online in September. Are you going to the physical classroom?
No, some are.
Okay.
They're leaving it up to the parents to decide if they are going to do online or if they're going to do physical classroom.
Okay. So therefore the whole determining factor is what the parents have decided.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. 3 tips or good practice that you've gained on the online platform.
Parent communication. Okay. Constantly asking them or frequently asking them how things are going and what you can do to support them and their child. That's the biggest one. Obviously I learned that I need to take care of myself.
Yes. Big time.
And honestly, check in, like I said, even if you just do an hour or 2 once a week with your students, just to check in. They don't necessarily want to learn. They just want to be with their friends. They just want to see other people, and they want to see you. Like, they like seeing your face. They want to talk to you. They want to tell you about things. Even the older kids, they want to see you, you know, and it doesn't have to be school. It doesn't have to be about anything educational. It could just be, hey, how was your day? What did you guys do this week? You know, what did you draw? That kind of thing.
It's it's like the connection, isn't it? This is what education is about. The connection is having the connection with your student, whether or not in terms is the physical classroom or the online classroom, just to see and the connection. That's what they want from you, just the connection.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and that's
that's what our job is.
It is very true. And for me, I prefer the physical classroom connection, but if I'm not able to get it, I will do okay on the online platform.
Yeah.
Because I keep saying the very first time when we went online, it was a trial period.
Sorry.
That's fine. We went online, was a trial period. We're fixing things. Now, if we go back online the second time, which we ought to be better, because we would have rectified all the errors we had the first time we went on.
Yeah, I don't think there's not enough done right now in the next 3 weeks. There's not enough information out there for anybody. Right. Yeah. And you know what the best part is? Not really, being sarcastic. Our Minister of Education in Ontario has decided to implement a brand new math curriculum starting in September.
What?
Yeah. Different, like adding more subjects in, with no training, nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't they realize that we've actually had a pandemic?
I know.
And students are concerned and parents are anxious, and students don't even know how they're going to get through the curriculum as it is now.
I know. Instead of waiting a year, yeah, it's going to start in September. We have to start brand new. And we have it, but there's been no teaching on it. There's been no training on it. There's been nothing.
It's just, you see, that goes back again to people who are doing education don't know about education.
Yep, exactly.
Just have the title of education and they don't know what goes on within the education sector, what goes on in the classroom, how long does it take to implement something, what are the issues with the children, students, and the educators. They don't know.
No, we asked for a year, like give us a year to get this in, and they said no. And that's normally what does happen with most new curriculum. You get a year to train for it and to learn through it, and you get training on it, and we're not getting any of that. So like, for example, they are starting, they have to do code. We have to teach coding, you know, like computer coding. We have to teach that, but we've never done it.
You see, you know what? It's like taking educators for granted, right? Knowing that they are going to deliver regardless of.
Yes, we are.
And I think, you see, I think it's quite sad. It's about time we start saying no. Because the minute we keep on saying yes, yes becomes a blueprint for everything else.
100%.
Yeah. And no need to be more in our vocabulary, because the more we say yes, then the administrators are saying, okay, there is no need for us to not do it because the educators say it's okay.
Yep.
It's like they're really under pressure, but they're still saying it's okay. Yeah. And it's okay, it's not good enough. We need to start saying no. We really do need to start saying no.
And we try. We have huge, wonderful unions here who have tried. Who have tried. But I mean, there's only so much, you know, like I said, your hands are tied. When your minister who runs the education system tells you this has to be done, you have to figure out a way to make it work, even if you don't know how. You know, like we're going to go back and we're going to make it work. We're going to do the best we can for the kids no matter what. It's just stressful not knowing how that's going to happen.
And you see, that's the issue. They know that we are going to do it for the kids, come what may. It doesn't matter how much you give us, we are going to do it for the kids, because what's in our forefront is the children we're teaching. So as a result of that, they're going to just keep on piling. They keep on piling. And they don't need to listen to the union because the educators are going to get it sorted. That's the thing about it.
You know, it's your hands are tied to because you know what, like people that go to a job and then they're done their job, right? You come home and they're done. And you know, I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to not take my job home with me. You know, that's never been something I've been able to ever do, you know? And so, you know, I don't think I just teach. I am a teacher. That's part of who I am. And that's not gonna, you know, that's not ever gonna change. It's just part of who I am. So, you know, I wish there was easy answers. I wish there was, you know, ways that you could, you know, and it honestly, it might be terrible, you know, it might not be great, but I'm hoping that we're all going to be in the kind of the same boat. It's not going to be great, but you know, maybe being back in a building with other people will mean that we can actually talk to each other and get out some of that. You know, we can actually release some of that stress. Like, hey, I'm not the only one that's having this problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're not going to feel alone. And I think that's part of it too. You're not going to feel like you're by yourself anymore.
It's interesting. I think this is what this situation is, because educators initially thought and felt that they were alone. But now when I'm doing this platform, they realize, oh my goodness, I'm having the same experience. It might be in a different country, but the experience are very much the same. And, you know, the not taking care of myself is the same as someone else in another country. You see, one of the issues I've had is educators are saying to me that they were online back to back. And that's a real huge concern for me, especially the fact that I'm a coach, and one of the things I do with female educators are trying to say to them that you need to start saying no. You need to reclaim your power of saying no to your administrator. And the fear of thinking that you'll lose your job. No, you wouldn't. You've got enough skills that you could actually find alternative elsewhere. And that's something I'm drumming into educators' head, because the more we begin to demonstrate the fear, the more the administrator is going to put it on, because the educators say it is okay. And the educators are being burnt out, but are still saying yes.
Yeah,
And it's a problem.
I know.
I find it more so during this COVID period. I've had so many educators are saying the same thing to me. Debbie, I taught back to back. Really?
Yeah. You know what? I really thought I was hoping to take some time for the first few weeks of our summer break. I was hoping to take some, and I tried. I tried for probably the first 2 weeks, try not to think about work, school, anything, just take 2 weeks. And I was fairly successful with that, but it's kind of, because there's so many unknowns now, it's not letting me. And because I'm going into a new school with another new grade and a new curriculum, and it just
yeah, it's like it's all this, all, you know, the overwhelmness is all coming.
Yeah, and for me, I need to know what I'm doing. I need to know, at least for the, have a first couple weeks planned, so I don't have to worry about it once the first few weeks are done.
Yes, I keep saying on the program that educators are controlled obsessed. We need to know that we are in control of what's happening, because when we are doing our lesson plan, we need to know that we're in control of our lesson plan. We need to know what is happening from minute to minute, hour to hour. When we are in our classroom, we like to know that we are in control of our classroom. We know how our classroom runs. It doesn't matter if any educator say to me that they're not control obsessed. Yes, we are control obsessed, whether consciously or unconsciously, because I'm aware that I'm control obsessed. When I go to my classroom, I want things to be this way, because if I have to teach without my lesson plan, or I have to abandon my lesson plan, I need to know, okay, I could put my hand in the drawer and take something else and use.
Yeah, exactly. You have you have everything planned, but you also know that if you have to be flexible, you can, because you got something there. Right?
Exactly. And exactly. And you need to know where the tools are to enable flexibility.
Yeah, you have to. Because you have to at least, have everything ready, because we know what will happen if they're not.
Yeah. And I think that's that could be some of the reason why as educators we control obsessed, because we know that if the students see that you don't know what you're doing, you lose the engagement of your class. You then have a class that have behavior issue, although they don't have behavior issue, but it then come a behavior issue because they realize that this teacher is fumbling.
Yep. So, 100%.
You see, that's the thing about it. And what can you take from the online platform to implement in your classroom? Are there anything you're going to take from this online classroom and you're going to implement in your physical classroom?
Our school board is asking that in the first week we have the Google Classroom set up and ready to go in case we have to go back to quarantine again. Okay. So they're asking that all teachers have that online portion ready to go, so that you don't have to do the whole break of, well, who can do this and who can't, and who can get online, who can't, and just we'll be ready to start the next day if we had to.
Right.
So that's what's been asked of us, is just to have that classroom ready to go. And you don't have to necessarily have plans in it, just that the kids are set up in there and they know how to access it.
Yeah. So you are taking in the physical classroom, you are taking your online classroom into the physical classroom to be ready.
Yeah. Just in case. And you know what? They may not use it, but there's a lot, like, if you have a school that has all have the ability to be online, then that program itself is wonderful. It's awesome. It's actually awesome. The problem is I haven't been in a school since really the internet has come such an important part of the classroom. I've never been in a school that all the kids have had access. So I don't think it's fair to, for some and not the others. So I try to make it even for everybody.
Yeah, that's very true, because as we just start realizing that not all the children have access to the internet, or not all of them have access to the device when we want to teach them.
Yeah.
You see, that's the thing about it. What COVID have actually demonstrated, I had that on my page, demonstrate real inequality in relationship to services, in
Yep.
relationship to resource. COVID
Yep.
have actually brought this to in the forefront for most of us as educators. Because when the students say to us, oh, Miss, I haven't done my homework, Miss, I haven't got into the computer, and you're thinking, yeah, here goes another excuse because you didn't want to do it. But we actually is really seeing this in real time because it's actually playing out in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
And you're
Very
thinking,
true.
oh, it's really is something else. One other question is, what is your opinion in relationship to school opening? And as I said at the beginning of the program, the attack from the press, the attack from ministers, the attack from parents, the attack from lay people that educators are lazy, educators don't want to go back to school, educators, who they think they are, why do they think they're going to be infected? There's so many things. I've been on so many platforms over the last 24 hours, and educators are really going mad because the press and the parents, they're just attacking us. What's your opinion on all of that?
I've had to kind of stop reading the comments.
Right. Yeah.
Because
I see that.
Because it's, and I'm not good at it, but I really have tried to stop reading comments because I know, and my colleagues that I teach with, we know what we do, and we know we do a good job. And in the end, you try to explain, these are our concerns. We're not trying to create more problems. We're not trying to tell you that it can't be done. We're just saying this is what needs to be done in order to keep everyone safe. Like, we still can't, in Ontario, they still can't have more than 100 people gather in an outdoor forum. But we're about to put 500, 600, 1,000, 2,000 kids in a building with poor ventilation, with no room for physical distancing. And I haven't figured, like, we still have stores that you can only have so many people in the store at any given time, right? So why is that not okay? But it's okay to put all of us together all at once. And the answer comes down to the economy, right? People need to go back to work, so kids need to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I said, and people who say, teachers are not worth, they shouldn't get paid anything. I'm like, well, then why is it so important that we have to go back to work? You know what I mean? Like, if we're not worthwhile, if our job is not that important, if we're lazy, then why is it so important that we have to have this open? Why is it that all the kids' safety and our safety has to be compromised to go back to work? And honestly, I said, if it's okay for us to go back and we have all of these people all together, I said, then the premier should be opening up everything. It should be safe. We have our school boards, even our minister, they're still doing online meetings. They're doing Zoom meetings. So it's not okay for you guys to meet together, but it's okay for us to have 30 kids in a classroom.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hypocritical, I think, is the word I would use. It's
it's double standard, isn't it? Yeah. It's, I keep on saying that on every session, that some of us that teach these younger children, that when they see the teacher, they haven't seen you for weeks, for months, one of the first things you're going to get is they're running across to you. Especially, because you'll have children that you taught last year, they're going into the next year. When they see you, they're going to be running to you.
Yeah.
And you then have the situation where the new children coming in, new to school, new to the environment.
Yeah.
And, you say, okay, well, just drop them off and you sit over there. And let me just tell you about physical distance. You cannot come close. You cannot make friends.
Yeah.
What people are failing to realize is the impact in terms of attachment, in terms of relationship.
Yeah.
That is so big because we have trauma. We then have the fact that we're saying physical distance. You have the children feeling rejected. You then have lack of relationship being formed. Then you have the attachment process, because when children come to school, this is big in terms of attachment lead to relationship. So if they cannot attach, and if they're feeling rejected, what's going to happen?
I know.
It's
I don't know.
I've been thinking about it in the last week. I have not really spent much time thinking about this, but in the last week, my background being psychology and being an educator, I'm kind of merging both of them together. And I must say, it's bringing a lot of alarm bells forward to me. And a lot of things that are not being addressed because what people seem to be hammering on is the intellectual. If the child basic needs are not met, there is no way we could then go on to the intellectual needs.
It's not possible. And everyone's like, well, they need to go back for their mental health. I said, but they're not going back they're not going back to the normal, because there is no normal right now.
Exactly.
It's not going to be the school that they left. It's not. And for people to say, well, they need to go back for their mental health, I'm like, but it's not going to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be the same.
Exactly. And that's what ministers are forgetting and parents are forgetting. Parents are so concerned about, oh, my child is missing the work, I'm going to get a tutor for my child, etc. Does the child really want to have this tutor there? Or the child is having this tutor because you are forcing the child to have the tutor? Do you know what's going on in relationship to your child's psychological well-being or emotional factor, ability to attach it? Nobody's asking the children any questions.
No. And you know what? I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how I'm going to be able to help a student if I can't even go near them.
Exactly.
How do you help a kid do a math problem that doesn't want to tell you in front of the whole class what their problem is? How do you do that?
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know how to do that.
Exactly. I don't know either. I've got no answer. Or you see a child really distressed, as we see all the time, and you cannot even go close to the child to, whisper a comforting word to the child. What do you do? I don't know. I'm being honest. I've got no answer as an educator.
I don't know. I do have to get going.
Okay.
I'm really sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we've actually looked at the mental health aspect. We looked at some of the issue regarding teaching online, which Kerry have just told us some of the challenges that she's had. And in terms of her self-care was way down the bottom, and things like that she needs to be aware of. So thank you, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow with another educator. Can you please like, share, and comment? And we'll be back. So would you please share the comments? Would you please share the live? Because there's a lot of things that are not being addressed, which need to be addressed.